Our crew patch indicates also the name of our crew members, plus Koichi, our upgoing shuttle rotating crew member. That patch was designed by Caroline Swanson, daughter of Steve Swanson. And there's what the space station looked like before we got there. You can see it's a little bit not symmetrical. We need to add another solar array. And there's the happy team up on the International Space Station led by Commander Mike Fink, Sandy Magnus, and Yuri Lonchikov. A quick little cartoon of us installing the S6 truss and then unfolding those solar arrays. The night before we were supposed to launch, we had just an absolute gorgeous shot. This is really a picture. This is not any Photoshop here. This is no kidding picture. Really pretty. About a little over 4 hours before launch, we all get suited up in the suit room at the Kennedy Space Center. Here's our pilot, Tony Antonelli, getting psyched for his first mission. Steve Swanson. I flew with Swanee on STS-119. A real honor to fly with him a second time. There's Big Joe. Joe did some robotics work. He was a part of our EVA team. There's Ricky, another EVA team member. And John Phillips, third time in space, twice in a shuttle. John was our robotics operator. And there's Koichi Wakata. Marching out to the Astro van, and we're this again right around 4 hours prior to 3:45 prior to launch. About a 6-mile drive out to the pad, and then about 3 hours and 15 minutes we start the entry process. A little bit of a trick to get up on the flight deck seats, particularly the commander and pilot seat. And while I'm jumping in there, we got other guys getting ready to jump in right behind us. It takes about 45 to 50 minutes to get all 7 crew members loaded up in the vehicle. You can see here's some work being done on the mid-deck. The 3 mid-deck riders getting strapped in by George Brittingham. And there's our flight deck crew, Steve Swanson, last guy to get his helmet on. He lucked out. He's only on his back for about 2 hours.
Discovery Launch Director.
Launch Director, go ahead for Discovery.
Okay, Brew, well, you had a little bit of a wait, but that'll just make the payoff that much sweeter. So on behalf of the KSC launch and processing teams, good luck and Godspeed.
Thanks, Mike, and congratulations to you and the entire team for getting Discovery ready for the 36th mission. And, you know, it's truly an honor to be part of this team, representing all of NASA, our nation, and the international partners. Thanks for the work, Mike. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care, and let's go ahead and fire up the Zone of Freedom.
Copy that, Brew. Thank you very much.
A very anxious space station team.
Copy, clear to launch. Thank you.
About 7 minutes, they moved the white room out of the way on the swing arm. About 5 minutes prior, we fire up the APUs, and in 3.5 minutes, we do engine gimbal check.
Lock your visors and initiate O2 flow.
That's in work.
About 2 minutes prior to flight, we remove the O2 vent, which we call the mini cap.
15.
12. 10.
DLS, go for main engine start.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And booster ignition and liftoff of Space Shuttle Discovery, taking the space station to full power for full science.
Houston Discovery, roll program.
Guidance to the roll. Copy.
Roger, roll, Discovery.
See our mission control team in that lower right inset. Those solid rocket boosters are with us for about 2 minutes, and when they finally...
Discovery, go and throttle up.
And after about 2 minutes, when we get rid of those solid rocket boosters, we're at about 150,000 feet going Mach 5. So they did their job. They boosted us away from the Earth, and now it's just all about acceleration from there on in. Things become very quiet in the space shuttle at this time when all we got is the 3 main engines burning. And those 3 main engines will continue to burn for about 6.5 minutes. At around the 4-minute point, we're going to peak out at around 365,000 feet. And then, as I say, it's all about accelerating out to Mach 25. It's actually 25,820 feet per second. And so those 3 main engines are going to get us there.
Main engine cutoff is confirmed.
Sandy never really believed we were going to get there until that moment.
Discovery, Houston, nominal MECO, OMS 1 not required.
So it was a fun 8.5 minute ride to orbit, but
not required.
But there is no time to rest. We've got a very busy day ahead of us for the next 6.5 hours, so we got to get right to work. It's the cockpit, both the flight deck as well as the mid deck, immediately become a beehive of activity. Got to get the helmets off. Joe's in a good mood. He's zero G for the first time in his life. There's Tony. Commander's pretty excited to still be there. Swanee is always excited. Down in the mid deck, you can see these guys have got to get out of their seats in a hurry. These three guys are going to help turn the whole vehicle around and reconfigure ourselves for a spacecraft to live on for a couple of weeks. So a lot of excited guys, but we got to get right to work. In the meantime, both myself and the pilot are going to go ahead and get set up for what's called an OMS 2 burn. That happens around 37 minutes into flight, and this is a small burn. You can see that's what it looks like in the mid deck when that OMS 2 burn kicks off. And we've got those two OMS engines, each 6,000 pounds of thrust, going to burn for a couple of minutes. And what that's going to do is it's going to circularize our orbit. Almost one complete rev around the Earth. Basically, when we're flying right back over here, over Houston, after almost one complete revolution, we're going to go up ahead, open those payload bay doors. And this is what a very critical moment. This is what clears us for orbit ops when we get those payload bay doors open.
All right, that was a busy flight day 1. We get up on flight day 2, and we'll use the robotic arm and the boom with some cameras and lasers on the end and take a look at Discovery, both the wings and the crew cabin and the nose, make sure she's looking okay after ascent. Also, the mid-deck guys are busy getting their spacesuits ready. They check them out on flight day 2, make sure they'll be ready for spacewalking on flight day 5. Ends up being a pretty busy day, and then on flight day 3, it's time to rendezvous with the station. We do a few burns from the front, and this is what, again, another view of the station as we're coming up from below and behind. John's shooting a laser beam at the International Space Station, and Bruce in the back hand flying the space shuttle. Ricky's doing what he does best, pushing a button. It's not as easy as it looks. This is us about 600 feet directly underneath the space station. View in the upper left there from the space station looking down at us, and then us looking through our payload bay. For those of you that don't know, Bru's hand flying this, and we'll slow the video down here in just a second, and you can see how well of a job he does by how centered up the space station comes up right along the tail. See the space station starting to come up along the sides, and you'll be able to tell he did such a great job flying it. You can't even see the center of the station in the view there. It's right up the center of the tail. Once we complete this flip underneath, Brew will drive us up out in front of the space station. There's a view of the mission control team and the displays they're looking at. In the view, you can see the Space Shuttle Discovery, just out in front of the space station. You can see the target there on the right. You can see the cross perfectly centered in the circle there as Brew flies us in and docks with the space station. We had to slow this down a little bit so you could be able to watch it in film. This is the results of Ricky pushing the button. And you can see Quatsy's happy. Brew gets the hatch open here on the afternoon of flight day 3, and we were wondering if the space station guys were going to be excited to see us. They were right there on the other side of the hatch, ready to greet us.
Space Shuttle Discovery arriving.
All right, we get just a minute for greetings, and then a quick safety brief. but we got a long day ahead of us.
So let's get to work.
So the next morning on flight day 4, we did get to work. Here's Sandy and I moving that 16-pound truss out of the payload bay using the space station robotic arm, with Brew helping us out from the flight deck. And here you see a picture of the truss coming out of the payload bay, and we're going to flip it around and get it in a position to hand it off to the space shuttle arm, driven here by Tony and Joe, who are then going to move it to another position. And in the meantime, while they're grappling the truss, or while they're moving the truss, the ground is going to move the railroad cart that the station arm rides on, so we can grab it back from them and put it to bed for the night. Meanwhile, the EVA guys have spent the night in the airlock, and Tony and Mike are getting ready to, well, they've got them suited up and they're going through all their checks. This is the next morning, and Koichi and I are moving the truss with the space station arm to its near its final position, while Tony and Mike are keeping working, getting Ricky and Swanee out the door on the first of our 3 EVAs. This is a view of the space station airlock hatch from outside as they open the thermal cover. In the second view, Swanee's outside and Ricky's in view through the hatch, and he's coming on out. And then as soon as they got out, they scampered up to the S5 truss. S5 is where we're going to install the S6 truss. And here we have Swanee coming up on S5. And in the top of the picture, you see the claw, which is going to grab the S6 truss. And here's the gap between the 2 trusses as we're driving it in. There's Koichi and I in the inset driving it in with a robot arm. And once the claw had grappled it and dragged it in, the EVA guys still had a lot of work to do to configure the truss. They've folded out the blanket boxes and what's called the beta gimbal assembly. In other words, all the support structure for the truss, for the solar blankets themselves. And now the ground has commanded a deployment of the photovoltaic radiator that keeps all the electronics cold. Then the EVA guys were just about done. The radiator's deployed, and the next scene you'll see us. You'll see a happy joint EVA and robotics crowd after a long but successful day. Then the next day, flight day 6, was a moment of high drama as we deployed the solar arrays, some of which had been in the box for nearly 8 years. We had a beautiful plan that was put together by the Falcon team, and they did a lot of the commanding, and then the crew did some as well. You can see the whole crew here on the Space Station Robotics Workstation area. Every one of us had a job to do, and the plan went really well. You see me there with my finger on the abort button, but I never had to push it. We had a great plan. It went smoothly, and we brought the station to full power.
Well, besides the S6 and solar array tasks, the EVA crew members had other tasks to complete. Here, Joe's working on pulling that UCAS up into the very robust detent position. And here's from my helmet cam looking out. You can see Joe working away on the diagonal brace beam. And again, here I am on the UCAS working on tying it down. And Joe got to take a ride. We moved the seater cart from the port side to the starboard side. And Koichi's driving this. It's like a fast Japanese sports car here. But Joe says he couldn't feel a thing the whole time. And here, Ricky's working on his skills to be a mechanic. He's lubing the latching end effector of the station robotic arm. And you can see the fruits of his labor there as the snares open and close. And then our EV tasks were done, and it was time to come on in. And again, we had a happy crew after the end of each EVA. Everybody was pretty happy. It went well. And Tony's job and Koichi's job, of course, to get us undressed at that moment. And besides working in space, of course, we had to live there. So here's Brew getting in his sleeping bag. He had the suite up on the flight deck. And you can see the rest of the crew down below, kind of bundled all together. It's a standard morning breakfast. Of course, as you can see, it's a little hard to keep control of all your food in space here. I think Ricky loses some oatmeal here. Here's our galley, where we rehydrate the food and get water. And most of the time, the water does go in the bags. And this is the oven. And you can see just food starts coming out once you open it up. So you grab the one that looks the best and start eating. And Brew, playing with food as usual. And one night we had dinner over in the Russian segment. We had Russian food along with Japanese food. It was all very tasty. As you can see, it comes in cans. There are pork, beef, and fish. I like them all, however, I couldn't tell the difference between any of them. There's Joe trying to look good. And Koichi needed no help. He always looked good. We also had some repair work to do. Our bike broke on us from the first day, and here's John and Tony working on it. They repaired it on flight day 5, and from then on it worked great. We also had transfer ops. As you can see, it's a little easier to move bags up in space. We also had to work out. Here Ricky's on that newly fixed bike on the shuttle. Joe's on the station bike. And you can see there are aliens in space. And Brew is on the new resistive exercise device that some of us got to use. And here he is doing his deadlifts. And Yuri's on the treadmill back in the service module. I think we pitched up to give him a hill to climb here. There's a little translation through. That's always a fun thing. Here's Ricky trying to herd some M&Ms into his mouth.
It took an hour.
Again, translations are just fun to do. Doesn't matter where you're going, just do it. John's doing the physics experiments. Of course, there's not many classes where you actually get to drink your experiment. Here's one we just chanced upon. We happened to hit this one time and noticed this wheel floating there. I thought that was a good experiment, rotational stability. And Tony's practicing some space darts.
Unsuccessfully. This is taking out the gem window. We had to slow this one down too as well. But this is really a view where you wish you could take all of you folks up with us to have a look. Watching the arrays follow the sun, and this is a day in space. And almost as nice as watching out the window during the day is watching cities, thunderstorms, and the aurora at night. And we had a special phone call while we were there.
Discovery International Space Station, the President of the United States.
Hello, Commander. Can you hear us?
President, welcome aboard the International Space Station. We hear you loud and clear, sir.
President spent about 20 minutes asking us questions as well as some students.
And we appreciate you guys, so look forward to seeing you when you're back on the ground. God bless you.
And seemed really excited to hear what we were doing. Sandy, our last transfer operation was getting Sandy on the right side of the hatch. We really had to drag her. She was disappointed to be leaving. And it was soon time to say goodbye to Koichi. and Spanky. Brew closed up the hatch. And we started getting ready to fly away. And here's the special buttons I got to push. And pretty soon it's the station jettison button.
Space Shuttle Discovery departing.
So with those words from the space station crew, we were on our way. It was a pretty exciting moment for all of us, not just because we were on our way home, but also because we were going to have the opportunity to look out that window and get a view of what this whole team really worked for, which was getting the truss up there and the solar array wing deployed. So we start heading out here. The flight control team did a great job of working our timeline. So as we started to back away and Tony's flying here, we're all on the flight deck. As we start to get further and further away and we start approaching approximately 400 feet, the sun comes up and we start to get our first glimpse of the work that everybody has been working so hard to get done. And it was quite an impressive view, and there was a lot of fighting for window space up there. And you see the shuttle shadow going across the station there on the left. And as Tony did a great job flying us around, we start going out to about 600 feet. And Koichi did a good job having everything lined up. But at this point, things are starting to get back to normal and putting these solar array wings back to work. It was quite a spectacular view. I know I wasn't the only one thinking, hey, can we do another spin around the block and maybe do this one more time? But it was time for us to come home. And here Swanee's working on closing the payload bay doors, really a closing event for us as we get ready to come back home. Mid-deck crew getting us all suited up, ready to go. Smiles all around. And this next guy here, I've never seen him smile so much. Actually, he smiled for about 12 days. So we're getting ready to go. One last spin before we head out. And we get ourselves strapped in, and we get ready for the burn.
Brew that he's go for the deorbit burn. Discovery Houston, you are go for the deorbit burn.
Discovery, go for deorbit burn.
I think in the background there was a little yoo-hooing going on. We were pretty happy to be coming home. We had to wave off on our first attempt, so Richard, we appreciate you getting us back. And you can see the egg timer there floating as we get ready for the burn. And the next thing you know, gravity's starting to take charge. Here we are at about 0.1 Gs. And we start working up to about 0.4, and things are starting to get real heavy.
Very nice day at the Kennedy Space Center. A little bit breezy, but turned out to be a very good day. We got her back down. Space Shuttle was just a joy to fly. We had a lot of great training from our SDA crews that gave us thousands and thousands of practice attempts. You know, I was telling Tony, we had practiced this in the SDA probably 1,500 or 2,000 times, but this is the only one that counted. You see we popped the chute, let us slow down, but we really didn't even need it that day with the strong headwinds. We just basically came to a glide almost without even touching the brakes.
Houston, Discovery, we'll stop.
Houston copies, we'll stop. Welcome home, Discovery, after a great mission to bring the International Space Station to full power.
So it takes us about an hour, hour and a half to get out of the vehicle, get our blue suits on, and come back out and do a nice walk around of the Space Shuttle Discovery. It's a beautiful sight to see there on the runway. It was a very happy crew, and I think we had a lot of good, happy folks at the Kennedy Space Center. Just appreciated us getting it back to Florida this time. And that is it.